We're here this morning with my friend, Giovanni Edgar. Giovanni provides services to expats, to tourists when they come here to Costa Rica. And this morning I'm going to talk to him about some of the main things that people need to think about when they come to Costa Rica. So, Gio, what do you think are the most important things for people to think about before they come here?
Hi, Jay. Well, thanks for the invitation. First of all, okay, this might sound obvious, but it has to be said that you are coming to a completely different culture. So many times people come here with unrealistic expectations, and I hate to tell them, but I have to. So please do your homework and yeah, don't expect Costa Rica to be like the United States, because it's not in many ways, so many ways.
Agreed. So what problems do you see expats run into on kind of a regular basis when they get here?
Well, that's a big question. We might need but I'll give you a short answer today. Maybe we can develop that in a future interview. Well, language barrier, it's a big one. That's why I provide interpretation. I go to mechanics, doctors, banks, because very few Ticos have a high proficiency level of English. So that's why I offer that service, right? And besides the language barrier, like I said before, culture shock, for instance, Tico time. Ticos are not on time. 2 o'clock doesn't mean 2 o'clock. We all know that, and it causes a lot of frustration to expats.
Yeah.
So, and many Ticos just think it's impolite to say no or I don't know, and they make up an answer, and tourists end up getting lost.
Right.
So there are so many things that to think about.
Right. In fact, they don't want to say no, so sometimes they'll say yes, or they'll say tal vez, maybe, but they really mean no, and then you find out that they meant no.
They're trying to make some money, and they say, "Oh yeah, I can put your tiles. Oh yeah, I can fix your gate," and they really don't know, and they make a mess, and then you end up paying more to another guy because this cheap guy didn't do what he said he was going to do.
Right.
So
that's not particular just to Costa Rica. I mean, I ran a business in the United States for 35 years, and I ran into people who claimed to know stuff that they actually really didn't know.
That's kind of universal.
So, what do you think about? I mean, one of the big ones for people who are going to live here is they have to decide on whether they're going to own a car or not. So, what has been your experience with expats coming here with buying a car?
Well, you have to be very, very careful. First of all, driving in Costa Rica, you have to learn about that.
The culture of driving, which changes from wherever you are in the world.
Like, depending on the day and the time, a stop sign is barely a suggestion. So,
yes.
So be careful. And talking about buying a car, I've had a lot of good experiences buying from a private owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I have bad experiences. I mean, some bad in buying from a car dealership. Like in Grecia, there are hundreds of car dealerships, but not all of them are honest.
Right.
They try to sell you a car that has a major problem,
and they do roll back the mileage odometers here. Don't they?
Most of the cars, they do that because it's easier to sell.
Yeah. We don't have Carfax here. You can't find out. You can't go online and find out if a car's been in an accident, and you can't tell if that odometer reading is correct or not.
No, I trust a couple of car dealerships in Grecia. I started working recently with, may I say, connoisseur of cars.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Giovanni, and he owns Autos Aron in Grecia.
Okay.
And he has sold a few cars to some expats, and they are super happy
Right.
because he's very honest and knowledgeable. So that would be the main thing. Be careful who you buy from,
Right.
and have a local that you trust to negotiate the
Negotiate.
price,
Yeah.
or you get a gringo price.
I was just going to say, let's talk about being gringoed here. Sometimes the fact that you are an expat, that you're a tourist or an expat, you come here. There's lots of honest people here in Costa Rica. There are also quite a few who are not. And I have found that occasionally it's better for me. I have a lot of Tico friends. I'll send one of them to go get a price before I go negotiate.
That's a good idea, because there is this stereotype: gringo, rich. So people try to take advantage, and that has happened. I know several stories, and they just try to do it themselves, and they got in trouble. So I would recommend to be careful with who you buy from,
Yes.
and get some help.
Okay, so back to cars. Do you think it is a good idea to bring a car from the United States here? And if so, let's talk about the drawbacks of that. What is the latest law on the aduana, on the taxes that Costa Rica charges for bringing a car in?
Well, short answer, no. Don't bring a car. Why? Because you pay a lot in taxes. Just to give you one example, one of my clients, I assisted her bringing her brand new Hyundai. Well, she ended up paying $12,000 in taxes. She could have bought a 10-year-old car with that money. And guess what? She drove it for maybe a month. And one morning she called me, Giovanni, I had a car accident. Please come help me. She, didn't see a stop sign and hit a Tico. So,
wow. And if you're a gringo and you have a legal problem with a Tico, you better get a good lawyer because things are not set up for you.
Yeah, something else that some clients have done and they regret is driving from the U.S. to Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's what.
Recently, a client did it, and they said that was horrible. Yeah. Horrible. So
geopolitically, driving from the United States through all of Mexico, through
Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua,
El Salvador, Nicaragua. These are not really stable places, and the gangs in many of these countries really run the place. So I would highly recommend that you do not drive from the United States to Costa Rica.
This other client, he loved his car in the US. He said, oh, I got to bring my baby, And he brought it here. And guess what? His car is sitting in the garage. He says his car doesn't like the roads in Costa Rica. So he paid a lot of money to bring his car here. And now he cannot find the parts because it's not a common car in Costa Rica.
Right.
So, I would say don't bring a car. There are so many used cars here.
Yeah.
And if you're careful, you can buy a really good car.
And as in my experience, I have a 2009 Honda CR-V. A little bit of a gas guzzler, so sometimes I regret that. But it's a good car, and the mechanics here are first rate, and they're not expensive. So you can get work done here on your car. You can keep a car going almost indefinitely here, and it's not that expensive. I think that's probably the best choice. Get a decent used car. I would say for the roads here in Costa Rica, you probably want an SUV. Don't get some little car that sits down a few inches off the ground. We have reductors here, what we call muertos, speed bumps, and some of them are quite steep. And you'll see, young guys like to get like a Honda and drop the suspension, and they can't get over the speed bumps. So
Yeah.
Some basics.
They can get a nice car, let's say 10, 15-year-old car for, let's say, between 10, max $20,000.
Yeah, well, $20,000 will get you a 2016, 2017.
Exactly. A newer, more money. You get a newer car, but with let's say 10 or 15, you get a decent car, for these roads. You don't need a expensive car because so many potholes, and so, and of course, you get insurance.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the culture of driving here. Costa Rica is known for its attitude of pura vida, which is kind of like letting things go. But I'll tell you what Ticos let go of when they're behind the wheel. They let go of their pura vida, especially in the mornings and in the evenings, rush hour. And, if you're like we live in Gracia, it's in the Central Valley. It's about an hour and 20 minutes to San Jose, hour and 10 minutes.
Depending on the time, yeah.
But if it's rush hour, that could be 2 hours more.
Easily.
And Tico drivers, I drove taxi cabs and limousines and trucks in New York City for 6 years. I've driven in LA and Phoenix and Houston and Dallas, all around the world. The drivers here can be just as aggressive as any place else. So, and the most aggressive drivers are motos.
Oh, yeah.
The motorcycle drivers here, in my opinion, are nuts. And there's a lot of accidents with.
That's why motorcycles have the highest accident rate.
Yeah.
Because they just don't respect the rules.
No, there's zero rules for motos, and there's very little traffic enforcement here. The real traffic enforcement is the traffic cops sit on the side of the road and they look to see if your registration is up to date, the marchamo.
Mm-hmm.
And motos, they weave in it, they lane split, but very often I'll be in traffic and motos will come by on both sides of me at the same time. One's lane splitting and the other's riding the shoulder, and they come by at full speed. So
yeah, there's a lot to be said about driving here. Let's say the paperwork, the marchamo, DECRA, parking systems. We can talk about that
So
later.
Let's talk about public transportation, which for the first year and a half I was here, I just took the bus and taxis or Ubers when I got to one end or the other. And it's when I got up here on the mountain. Also, I like to play golf. And in my car at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's an hour drive to the golf course. I tried way back when, before I had a car, I hired my friend Bernal to take me one time. But, he had to drive me to the golf course and wait for me for 4 hours to finish the round and then drive me back home. It wound up being more expensive than the green fees at the golf course, and I couldn't do that. I also like to fish, and I fish. It's about a 4-hour drive from here by bus. It's about 6 hours, and plus, if I'm bringing my fishing equipment and ice chest, it just didn't make sense. So I did get a car. And I think I'm a pretty good driver. I drove professionally when I was younger. But the public transportation here is some of the best in the world. This is one of the best bus systems anywhere. The buses run on time, they're inexpensive, and they go to everywhere. Every tiny little hamlet, pueblito, there's a bus that you can take there, and the buses run between the big cities. And you can get anywhere you want to go in Costa Rica on a bus.
Basically, yeah, that is correct.
Okay, so let's talk about, this is something that you do quite a bit with. Let's talk about Tico bureaucracy and the hoops that you have to jump through. Let's talk about getting a visa, paying taxes, dealing with the municipality if you get a parking ticket or any of those kinds of things. And then talk to me about your services and why it's important for most expats to have somebody like you help them with Tico bureaucracy.
Well, like we mentioned before, the language barrier many or most of government employees are not fully bilingual. They might say good morning, how are you? But when it gets to talk about business, they get lost. So it's good to have an interpreter. That's why I offer interpretation. And well,
So
um,
let's take for instance. So my Spanish is not horrible. I can express myself pretty well. My big problem tends to be when a Tico respond. They hear me and they just assume that my Spanish is great, and they talk very fast, and they use words that I don't always understand. Right, and my vocabulary is not as extensive, as expansive as it could be. So if I need to go down, and then also when I've gone down to get my tax valor set up here for my house, I brought Giovanni with me because he's friends with the guy down at the city, and I think I got a better tax rate because Giovanni went with me. So to me, even though my Spanish is okay, I would not try and do any government interaction without having Gio with me to help me through it.
yeah, now I got 3 more kids helping me who are fully bilingual. So, because, the business has been growing. So,
Hopefully it's going to grow more after this video posts on my YouTube channel. What are your services? They're extensive.
well, the business is called CR Concierges. The other day, somebody asked me, a client from the States, what is a concierge? I was surprised that they didn't know, but I said, well, I offer home rentals, right? I show people.
You do real estate.
Real estate, mostly home rentals and some sales.
So Giovanni has helped me find 2 rentals for myself when I was renting. He helped me find this house that I bought, and he helped me find an investment house that I bought that I'm keeping as an investment as the stock market goes up and down.
And talking about homes, I also help with home repairs, home improvements. I don't do it myself, but but I know the best electrician, the best plumber, the best, for everything. So I, like now we're waiting for an electrician to come here to look at a water heater. Yesterday we were somewhere else. He was fixing a stove, but most of these technicians are not bilingual. So I am there to, translate, interpret,
right,
show them where to go and just translate. Um, so I offer, like I said, interpretation and transportation. I drive people places. Like after this interview, I'm heading to San Jose with a client who needs to renew a passport, or we're just getting some photos taken
which
there.
reminds me, you and I need to get down to the post office and apply for my. It kind of pisses me off, right? I spent a lot of money to get my permanent residency, and I think I'm gonna have to look and see that if it lasted 2 years or 3 years, because before every 2 years I had to re-up my cedula, my identification card showing that I'm a resident, and so I paid to get permanent residency, but I still have to go in and re-up, and I think it's 3 years, but it seems like it was just 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, you can just look at the card and
Yeah.
But yeah, I talked to my friend at the post office. I need to go there, make an appointment to renew your.
In March, early March, because I'm leaving.
It can be done 3 months early.
No, actually, right. We should do it sometime now in February, in the next couple of weeks.
If you're leaving in.
I'm leaving I'm leaving first week of April.
Okay. So we gotta do it as soon as possible. Because it'll take about maybe a few weeks to a month to get the new card.
Yeah.
So if we do it now, you will get it sometime in March.
Before I leave. So just my experience with Gio, he also so he's going to set up this appointment at the post office. I can go do these things, but it's more difficult for me, and he has friends there, which I am also going to be doing an interview with my lawyer, who I think is probably one of the best lawyers, especially for residency issues. And then also she did the contracts for me for when I bought this house. But we'll talk with Patricia specifically about legalities. But Giovanni can do a lot of the things that you might normally hire a lawyer for. And I use him to set appointments for me for anytime I have to deal with the bureaucracy here. I prefer to have Gio help me.
Yeah, like for residency renewal, getting a driver's license, renewing your driver's license.
DECRA is the annual car inspection that you have to do, and now the Marchamo, I just did the Marchamo myself. You can get your Marchamo at the bank, and the Marchamo is your registration for the car that you have to do yearly, and it's liability insurance. As if I'm wrong, tell me a little bit more about the Marchamo. It's not insurance for for damages to you, but if you are in an accident, you have your Marchamo. It takes care of the other person, or does it?
Yeah. The basic coverage or fees, I think, covers $12,000 of medical care, but you can pay a little extra and raise it up to double that, or
insure the car itself.
Insure the car itself, yeah.
Right.
But Marchamo covers 6 million colones in for medical care.
Right.
I usually pay extra.
I think my Marchamo costs about $300 this year. $320, something like that.
Yeah, for a 15-year-old car, you pay somewhere between $200, $300 a year.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay it, you get like $100 fine.
And that's the one thing that traffic enforcement really does enforce here. They sit by the side of the road, and if they see that your inspection sticker is not the correct color, they pull you over, and it's a big fine.
And they could get your plates,
they can take it, and they will. They'll take your license plates.
Takes a while to get them back, so better to pay on time.
Better to pay on time, indeed. Well, listen, I think we will bring Giovanni back here for some more interviews before I leave for Thailand. I'm getting ready to take a 6-month sabbatical to Thailand to be a little closer to my son, and we'll be doing some videos about preparing for that trip. And then, of course, when I get to Thailand and Southeast Asia, we'll be taking a look at those countries as well. In the meantime, thanks for listening in. If you like it, subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications. See ya. If you like this video and others from 105-Minute Meals, please subscribe. Hit the like button and hit the bell button so that you get notifications when we come out with new videos. Pura vida from Costa Rica.